Good evening, or rather good afternoon, and welcome to this very exciting opportunity for everybody. A little taster of what's to come in just a couple of weeks. I hope everybody is doing well. Once a few more people dive in here, um, I will introduce myself, tell you a little bit about sort of what the plan is for today, and of course, give you some tips for none other than that fantastic paper, GCSE, English, language, paper one. Let me know that you're doing well, that you're happy with this short poll that I'm going to run. If you're feeling good, one. If you're feeling two. If you're feeling decent, three. Not so great, four. Let me know. And of course, I will, in a moment, introduce myself because we are running fantastic courses all over Easter, getting year 11s up and down the country ready for their exams. Nice one. Welcome to Yours Kuramik. Hello to Yours Kuramik. Hello to X Corroded shouting 10D. If anyone else is from 10D, let us know. Hello Plicker. Plicker's feeling good. I hope life is treating you well, Plicker. Hello Max for real, as opposed to Max for fake. How is life? How is everyone getting on in the run-up to your exams? Plicker's 10D. Nice one. Well done, pal. DSO, well done. Organu Agu, hello there and welcome to you. 11x2 is better. Legendary class, undoubtedly. Now, obviously, it's a bit of a different one today because it's slightly shorter. We're going to go to 5 o'clock. Usually our streams run for an hour. So slightly compacted. Max, for I'm good, bit nervous because I got 2 and 1 on mock paper. Well, the important thing to remember, Max, and don't forget this, a mock is just a mock. Okay. And we've still got a good month and a half or so to go until our exams kick in. So don't you worry, buddy. Everything will be great. I will introduce myself briefly if you don't know who I am. My name is Alex Sarichkin. I'm the assistant head of English here at My Edspace alongside Louis. Louis does English. I'm a fully qualified English teacher. I have over 10 years of teaching experience, starting all the way back 2014-15. I went to Queen Mary University there in London to study none other than English literature. And I worked as an examiner, examining this very paper, English language paper 1. Amy Lee, are you going to do a lit live? At the moment, the plan is just to do this one for our free taster. But of course, if you want to know about everything to do with English literature and language, across as well, all our other subjects, maths, science, biology, chemistry, physics, etc., then do click the link that's in the bio right now to sign up for our Easter revision courses. Okay. But let's just get into some learning, because as I said, slightly shorter for us today. The plan is quite straightforward: to explore engaging approaches to creative writing in preparation for GCSE English language. Now, we are focusing today on paper 1. What do we know about paper 1? Well, paper 1 is the fiction paper, and I'm, of course, talking predominantly here about AQA. AQA, which is the central focus of all of our Easter revision courses, AQA. Of course, the texts, whether you're on EdXL or OCR, there's a lot of crossover from the texts, but the approaches on the paper will be specific to AQA. So, Sleepy Sheep ASMR, great name. Love that. I find English language hard. Well, why don't you let me know what it is exactly that you do find difficult, and I'll see if I can help. Now, in this particular paper, you have a choice of 2 questions. Essentially, describe a scene inspired by a photo, or tell a story about a given scenario. Now, the questions always begin in the same way. They have some kind of little overview of something you're doing. In this case, it says you're writing for a creative writing competition. It's important to remember, hello, Microwave Dish VODS, another great name. You're not actually writing for a creative writing paper. It's just a stimulus. Okay. And what I mean by a stimulus is it's something to help us, begin and to get into it. And the winning entry will be published in the next edition. Unfortunately, unless the exam board chooses yours as a model, which is possible, you're not going to see your work published. Now, at My Headspace, we tend to break these two questions down. Either write a description, again, we focus on the description question, or write a story. We call this the narrative. Okay, narrative. Now, in this case, write a description of a safari park as suggested by the picture. And there's our little picture. Or write a story about someone meeting a wild animal. Now, the mark scheme is exactly the same. It's the same mark scheme depending on whether you choose the description or whether you choose the narrative. So same mark scheme. The reading ones where you read a text and they give you some true and false statements, you have to tick which are true. Yeah, I mean, my advice with that, it can be quite confusing, of course. But of course, on paper one, you're just copying quotes out from the selection of lines that they give you, like lines 1 to 5. And there it's just about copying the quotes over. Now, do we know what each of these assessment objectives are out of? Pop in the chat, please, if you know what AO5 is out of. I will tell you that the total number of marks available for this question is 40. AO5 is out of how many marks of that 40? How many marks of that 40 is AO5? Is Oak Academy good? It's not as good as My Headspace. It's not as good as My Headspace because, of course, My Headspace here, over our Easter revision course, you're being taught by people like me and 8 other fantastic teachers. Live lessons. What's better, description or narrative? Really depends. What do you prefer? Again, the examiners have no preference, right? Examiners have no preference. It comes down to sort of what you feel more comfortable writing. We've had a guess there from Max for Real. You're close with 20. The answer is 24. And for AO6, the answer is 16. Okay. Now, again, just to make this even simpler, you're essentially being tested on 2 things on this question. 1, your ideas. And 2, your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Okay. Now, let's just have a little look, shall we, at some specific parts of the mark scheme. So the content, that's what your story is about, it's an engaging piece of writing. It's matched to the purpose. So a lot of students have said to me in the past, can I prepare a story in advance and then go into the exam and write that out word for word? And the answer is no. And the reason is because it will not be matched to purpose. Now, there are some things that you can prepare in advance, like you can prepare a character in advance. You can prepare a setting in advance that you'd use, but you have to adapt your writing to fit the question. Like, for example, here, write a description of a safari park as suggested by the picture, or write a story about someone meeting a wild animal. Candice is here. Welcome, Candice. Do I prefer literature or language? I mean, I think they're both fantastic. I love the creative elements of the language. I like the stories on the literature. For me, I don't see them as too dissimilar. Back onto the mark scheme very briefly. Extensive and ambitious vocabulary with sustained crafting of linguistic devices. Now, as you will see here, vocabulary comes up a few times, okay? And that's because it's probably the most important thing that you can work on. Again, if people want to know, quick little revision tip from me, prepare some interesting words in advance. Okay, go into that exam and knowing 10 interesting adjectives that you've learned to spell correctly and use them irrespective of what the question is. So your organization is also tested. That's essentially the way that you organize your ideas to get the top marks. It's varied, it's inventive, it's compelling. It's a range of convincing and complex ideas. Hello, nice boy. Great to see you in the free stream. I love that commitment. Fluently linked paragraphs with seamlessly integrated discourse markers. Okay, and that's an important part of this paper as well. Right, just briefly then, AO6, as I said, spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Can I please, at this point of the stream, just emphasize something I've said to all of my classes? If you've ever been in my English class, you'll know that I say this all the time. Always aim to spell an interesting word and get it slightly wrong, as opposed to using the same old boring vocabulary and spelling it correctly every single time. I'm not year 11, but I'm still watching because I'm close to it. Nice one, Sleepy Sheep. Love that. Love to hear that. Microwave dish. Find a range of adjectives that are all different contexts. Yep, that's a really good idea as well. And Shri, I'm still so confused for our exams. How much is there in English Lit and Lang? I'm not quite sure what that question means, but there is a fair bit. And if you want to know what goes into every part of it, as I said, our Easter revision courses are covering everything there. One for own. When did I say that? Well, perhaps you weren't listening, one for own, because I say it all the time. So we're always aiming for ambitious vocabulary. Okay, that's the kind of aim of the game. Now let me kill this poll dead, because I would like to get into just a few interesting sort of things that you can use the next time you're doing a creative piece. So if you're going to go for the description question, my advice is as follows. The first thing you're going to want to do when you see the image is you're going to want to divide it into five sections. Okay, and I generally move around the image. So I might start here, then I'm going to focus here, then I'm going to focus here, then I'm going to focus here, and then I'm going to focus here. And what this allows us to do is really zoom in to each of these moments of the image. Okay, so whatever the image is that they give you, you firstly start off just by circling 5 sections, and those are going to be each of your focuses. Max, for real, my English teacher said good vocab doesn't matter. I don't often say this, but any English teacher really should be pushing good vocabulary. Because it's there. Ambitious vocabulary is a part of the mark scheme. If your vocabulary isn't ambitious, that's an issue. I then number these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and essentially each of these numbers is a paragraph. Okay, you should know by now that for this question, for that 40 marks, you're aiming to write about 2 pages of A4, roughly. Okay. Roughly 2 pages of A4, 5 paragraphs. That's a kind of rough measure. Of course, I don't tend to talk in paragraphs because you could have a 1-sentence paragraph. But if you wrote 5 1-sentence paragraphs, then you're not going to really have the quantity to pick up the marks. Tahim Khan, how can I revise Power and Conflict? Start off by rereading the poems. When was the last time you read Tissue, Photographer, War Photographer, Poppies? When was the last time you read Bayonet Charge? Now, then, do we know what this is? What are each of these? Who wants to drop a little guess into the chat for me about what each of these are referencing or sort of making a hint towards? The eyes, the ears, smell and taste of the 5 sentences here, smell, touch and taste. Well done, yours, Kurumik. The senses. Now, sense description, well done, Organu, nice one, DSO, is the basis of good description. Okay, it's the basis of good description. And what you can do is you can say, well, in this first section, I'm going to focus on what I can see. In this second section, I'm going to focus on what I can hear. In this third section, I'm going to focus on smell. In this fourth section, on taste. And last but not least, I'm going to focus on touch. There's another great little sort of way of thinking about this. This is our visual imagery. Okay. This is our auditory imagery. So anything to do with the sounds that we hear. And of course, in each of those paragraphs, as you're writing, you don't only have to write about, what you can see and what you can hear. You can bring the other senses in too. You can bring in certain descriptions of animals and, in this case, sort of the landscape. But the key thing is that by the time you've finished writing, by the time you finish writing, you've covered each sense. Okay. This is our sort of tactile imagery. Fahim Khan, is that all you have to do to read them? Shouldn't I memorize them or at least analyze them? Well, yes, of course, but you asked how can I revise? So the first thing to do to revise, obviously, would be just to reread them. Once you've started by reading them, then you can start to bring in the analysis and thinking about the key quotes. But of course, if you'd like to know more, we're doing this all in the second week of the Easter break. This is our olfactory imagery. And last but not least, gustatory. Okay. So again, if you want to choose the description, and that's fine, and I'm going to show you an example of what that could look like towards the end of this lesson. The key thing is that we're covering each sense, okay? Because that's going to show our exam. If we come back to the mark scheme briefly, it's convincing register, it's compelling, it's matched to the purpose, and we use varied and inventive use of structural features. Inventive could be, for example, based in the senses, right? How often should I be doing revision? Every day at this point. My apologies there. Let's rewrite tactile imagery. Because I sort of butchered the handwriting the first time. Okay, right, now, so that's just a brief overview of the description question. Again, examiners don't prefer one or the other. Whatever you feel most comfortable doing, my advice is that you do that one. Now, with narratives, if you want to choose the story, it's important to end satisfactorily, okay? Just a few off the top of my head, things, obviously, I'm sure your English teachers have said this, but let's avoid cliches. So let's say no to it was all a dream, okay? Let's say no to that. Let's say no to once upon a time, okay? Because these are cliches, okay? These are cliches. How long should we revise for in a day? Well, the best advice with revision is short and snappy. 15 minutes, 5 off, 15 minutes, 5 off, 15 minutes, 5 off. Go have a peanut butter sandwich. 15 minutes, 5 off, 15 minutes, 5 off, 15 minutes, 5 off. You know, play Tetris for 10 minutes. Those words sound hard. Which words? The ones on the previous page? Sure. Okay. Now, my thinking with the narrative question is always to base it in good principles of good writing. Now, this is a small graph we use at my Headspace to get you thinking about what happens in your stories. What happens if I'm allergic to peanut butter? Then don't eat it because you're allergic. So this B, it stands for beginning, and this E stands for end. And this G is about good fortune, so good things happening to your characters. And this is about ill fortune. So between the beginning and the end of your story, you want your characters to experience sort of a variety of experiences. You might, for example, choose to start your story with your character in a good place, and then by the time your story ends, they're in a bad place. You could do the opposite, right? So you might choose to start your story with your character in a terrible place, and then at the end, they're somewhere great. You might choose to have something a little bit more up and down. Those of you studying Romeo and Juliet will know, of course, that the play takes you from moments of great joy and love and happiness to immediately sad, intense moments of tragic demise. We could do the same thing. We could start up here. We could move it down to ill. We could bring it back up to good. We could move it back down again. We could go up there. Okay? The important thing with these narratives, okay, with our narratives. So this is again for the narrative question, write a story about this or write a story entitled. Those are a few of the examples that we've had in previous years. Keep your story to no more than 1 hour. Okay? And what I mean by 1 hour is of time. Great question from Being Isabella. It could be as something as simple as, to start in good fortune, you have a toy that you like. You lose it. You get it back. You lose it again. Finally, you decide, I don't want to lose this anymore. I'm going to give it to someone else. That's something that can take place in just an hour, right? It's about condensing our stories down, because one thing that examiners do tend to comment on with students is the students that do less well are the ones who try to tell these incredibly long stories. It all started when I was 5, and then I was 6, and then I was 9, and then I was 13 and 14, etc., etc. It's too big. You've only got 45 minutes. Keep it short. I always tell this anecdote that one of the best stories that I ever read, marking GCSE, was set between a bullet leaving a gun and then arriving in a victim. Okay, so how long does that take in real life? A millisecond. The student managed to condense a whole story just into that short period of time. Okay, and that was really good because it was detailed and focused and fantastic. Is it possible to go from grade 2 to grade 7 in English, or more than grade 7? Of course it is, Tahim. Anything is possible, my friend, especially if you jump onto our Easter revision courses, okay? Because we're covering all of this in so much detail. This is just, I've only got you for 30 minutes, 35 minutes. It's just a very brief dipping of our toes into the water. Now, this is an example of the Cinderella arc, okay? So this is the Cinderella story put onto this graph. So the main character lives a miserable life with no hope. Something good comes along to improve their life. They have the best time of their life. Tragedy strikes and they experience a fall from grace. They are back where they started, but now they have hope and they find happily ever after. Tahim, it depends on how much work you're willing to do. Okay? Always depends on how much work you're willing to do. Now, let's think about what we might write about if we were to write a story about someone meeting a wild animal and we were to take the Cinderella story arc and we were to apply it. So let's say the main character is on a safari, okay? And they're sad because they just lost a pet, okay? Something comes along to improve their life. They meet an incredibly kind giraffe, okay? And we could think about describing that giraffe. They have the best time of their life. They get to play with the giraffe. Was it perhaps a guinea pig and they didn't do their homework? Possibly. Tragedy strikes and they experience a fall from grace. Sadly, the giraffe runs away. They are back where they started, but now they have hope. They didn't have an animal. They got an animal for a short amount of time. The animal is gone. The hope is they realize they can love again. They find their happily ever after. They plan to get a new pet. Okay? So there we go. That's a whole story. This whole thing will take place in less than an hour, right? This whole thing will take place in less than an hour. Again, writing a story about someone who meets a wild animal, it's a pretty open question. Perhaps it was a guinea pig and they didn't do their homework. I mean, we could have replaced, is a guinea pig a wild animal? I suppose if you met a guinea pig in the wild, it could be a wild animal. So how do we approach the writing itself? Well, for example, let's just take, do we want me to do an example of the description or the narrative? Let me know in the poll that is coming up now. So would flashbacks and flash forwards still apply to the hour rule? As long as they're short, Because again, what I've read in the past, stories that have flashbacks and flash forwards that are like whole stories within themselves, and it sort of dilutes a little bit. It goes too far away from the original story. Okay, we can flash back, absolutely, but we need to keep it nice and contained and nice and focused. Okay, judging by that, we've got 60% who said let's do the description. So let's get that going, shall we? So again, if I come back to my plan, I'm going to start with the things I see in the top left hand of the image. Okay, now what can I see in the top left of the image? Above the bright green leaves, a cerulean sky hangs over the sleepy valley. Okay? No worries, Ariane, welcome. Again, think about what I'm doing here. I'm really focusing in on this top left part of the image. Okay? What can I see? Above the bright green leaves, a cerulean sky hangs over the sleepy valleys. Birds flying high brush with the skies, with the heavens, making their way home to their nests. Okay, what else can I see in there? Come back to the tree a little bit. The ancient oak, which has stood for generations, breathes a sigh of relief. The working day is almost done. Right? There you see nice little bit of personification, I guess, of the tree itself. The working day is almost done. I guess I could bring back to the sky. Soon it will be nighttime. It's acacia, not oak. Oh! No, fair enough. Let's change it. The ancient acacia. Well, I always start in the top left hand of the image, Sleepy Sheep ASMR. Does starting with the lower your mark? Great question. Not necessarily, but I always try to avoid starting with the. Okay, because everybody starts with the or it or then. Right? So soon it will be nighttime. It's actually not even nighttime. Soon it will be night. And silence will fall over the plains as the animals return, set down to sleep, and the sun breathes its last of the day. And that's where I'd sort of pause, right? So, again, that was a very speedy, but ultimately, and hopefully, fingers crossed for you, interesting few moments where I covered language paper 1. Now, if you want a special offer, you need to put a plus in the chat. Let's see those pluses in the chat. Thanks, you get fooled. Pop a little plus in that chat, and I'll tell you very briefly about our plan for the next couple of weeks. Because as you'll be aware, we are kicking off the Easter revision course in less than, well, we're kicking off next week, really, so in about a week's time. Nice one, you get fooled. Nice one, yours. Kodamik, nice one, Olivia Howell, and Being Isabella, and Max for real. Look, the Easter revision course, ultimately, is an intensive revision cram course that is designed to help you revise the entire curriculum. Okay, we have maths, both foundation and higher. We have English, biology, chemistry, physics. All these courses are available. Each course goes through every single topic, helping you repeat the fundamentals, consolidate your knowledge, and secure the very top grades. Okay, so what we're doing right now is we're running some early bird sales. So what's usually is £100, you can get it for just 20. Okay, for one course, and every course after that is only an additional £10. Okay. For example, if you choose the maths course, it's going to be £20. If you choose both maths and English, it'll be 20 plus 10, so 30. If you choose maths and English and all 3 sciences, it's just £60 in total. Okay. Students find this incredibly valuable. We already have hundreds of students signed up. So do obviously get involved. What's included? You're going to get interactive live lessons, just like the one that I shot and did just now. 6-hour revision lessons, 12 hours total, all recorded, so you can watch it back. They're interactive, it's not revising off some random, you'll be there being able to ask all the questions that you want to ask. You're going to get workbooks. We've produced our own mock papers as well that you can use. And these are tips from experienced examiners. Okay, our teachers are the very best. There is a nice selection of them. I believe that my head is covering my own face, but you don't need to see my face because my face is right here. So that's essentially what we're doing. Okay, we only select at my Headspace the top 1% of teachers, and it's an extensive recruitment process. So you'll know that you're going to get very, very good advice and very, very good guidance. Okay. Now, just as a final little bit, last year our students doubled the national average for grades 7 to 9. 58% of the students who studied with us received top grades compared to the national average of 27%. Okay. The discount, as I said, it's right there. You can save that link and click it anytime. As you can see, look, the reviews speak for themselves. Learned more in 3 hours than in 3 years. So Beth, she did pretty good. Okay. What are you waiting for? Click along. Do you have any questions? Jaira, my guy, Jaira. Hey there, how you doing? Good to see. I'm assuming that's the same Jaira that I taught many moons ago. Welcome. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them. Nice one. You get fooled, Jaira. Yours, Kuramik. TBC. I don't know. I haven't been invited. I haven't been invited. And you can't go places you ain't invited. Anything that we are doing. Anything that you'd like to know specifically about sort of the Easter revision courses. If not, hello, Beauty. Good. Welcome. If not, then thank you so much for joining. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hi, it's Jensen. Man like Jensen. Welcome. Thank you, being Isabella. I hope to see you on the courses. As I said, click the link below to find out more. We're really looking forward to our courses and kicking them off ASAP. Where is the link? It should be in the description of this video, Karam. In the description of this video. Is there still an English lesson after this? Yes, Organa. If you're on our courses already, then 5:30 will be cracking on. Okay. Is the lessons free? Which lessons? This lesson was free, but of course our Easter revision course, I mean, it works out about sort of £1, £2 per lesson, really. I believe all of our free lessons have now run. There was myself, Joe, Devinda. Will this stream be available to rewatch later on? Yeah. If you've got the link, you've got the YouTube link, copy it and watch it back for more exciting question 5 tips. But of course, the best place to be is on our Easter revision course. So take a look, have a think. As I said, the more the merrier. Boy, are we excited. Sleepy Sheep, how long am I on for? Another couple of minutes to take any more questions if people have them. But if not, then I will let you get back to your days. Thank you so much. It's been Alex Does English. Peace.